There's this moment in a lot of parents' lives where the whole dynamic just quietly shifts. The kids you raised are on their own paths now. And sometimes in that change, the respect you've always had starts to feel like it's fading away. It's a really painful thing to go through. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down why that happens and, more importantly, how you can reclaim that respect, not by starting fights, but with a kind of quiet strength. Does this hit home for you? Do you ever feel like that connection you used to have has been replaced by something else? Something you don't even recognize? If that's you, I just want you to know you're definitely not alone. It's a really common struggle, even if it's one we don't talk about much. It's just this deep, sinking sense of disappointment, isn't it? Your advice gets brushed aside, all your life experience suddenly seems to count for nothing, and sometimes you're even made to feel like you're an obligation. I mean, after a lifetime of sacrifice, that can feel incredibly isolating. Now, of course, your first instinct might be to fight back, right? To remind them of everything you've done for them, to argue your point, to complain. But here's the thing you absolutely have to understand. Those tactics, they almost never work. In fact, they usually just build the walls even higher and make things worse. The real key is to change the dynamic itself without all that conflict. So the solution doesn't start with them, it actually starts with you. The very first step is to change your posture. And I don't just mean physically, I mean how you carry yourself emotionally. It can fundamentally shift the entire dynamic, and it all begins by tackling the first two silent mistakes. So, silent mistake number one is chasing their approval. It's a total paradox. The more you try to please them, sacrificing your own needs and opinions just to keep the peace, the less respect they actually have for you. You're basically teaching them that your needs just don't matter as much as theirs. Let's take a look at Aisha Hanum. She was a strong woman, but over the years, she just started agreeing to everything to avoid a fight. Her mantra was, as long as there's peace in the family. But in chasing that peace, she completely lost her own voice. And her children? They started to see her as someone whose own opinions and needs were, well, optional. And that leads us right into the second mistake, which is arguing for respect. Look, the solution is not to start more fights, it's to adopt a dignified posture. Real authority doesn't come from yelling the loudest. It comes from a calm, firm energy that communicates self-respect without you having to say a single word. And this story about Mehmet Bey just illustrates this perfectly. He was a teacher respected by everyone at school, but at home, his own kids would talk right over him. He used to fight it, but then he just stopped. Instead, when they interrupted him, he would simply go quiet and wait. He wasn't demanding respect, he was commanding it with his quiet confidence. And you know what? It didn't take long for them to notice. They saw a father whose strength didn't need to be loud to be heard. So, it all boils down to this. First, stop acting like you need their approval just to feel okay about yourself. And second, focus on raising your stance, not your voice. This internal shift, it's the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. All right, once your posture feels more solid, the next big step is to define your boundaries. This is so important. This is how you teach everyone, including your own children, how you expect to be treated. And this is where we get into the next two mistakes. Okay, mistake number 3 is emotional dependency. Now, there's a huge difference between love and dependency. It's one thing to love your kids, but it's another thing entirely to make your happiness completely dependent on their calls, their visits, their attention. That becomes a really heavy burden for them to carry. People, and yes, even your own children, are naturally drawn to and respect those who are emotionally independent. Think about Fatma Hanum's story. Her entire day revolved around waiting for her kids to call. She'd call them all the time, telling them how much she missed them, and without realizing it, she was kind of pushing them away. So one day, she just stopped. She signed up for classes, started meeting up with old friends, she built a life for herself. And the most incredible thing happened? They started calling her more, curious about this new, interesting life she was living. And this really highlights that crucial shift in mindset, right? Emotional dependency is passive. You're just sitting there waiting for someone else to make you happy. But a meaningful life, that's active. You create your own joy, your own purpose. Making that shift is what breaks the cycle. And that brings us to the fourth silent mistake. And look, this one can be a tough pill to swallow, but it is absolutely essential to understand when it comes to boundaries. Getting this right can create the biggest shift of all. So here's the hard truth.
Disrespect often continues simply because, on some level, we've been silently allowing it. People learn how to treat us based on the behavior we accept from them. Setting a boundary isn't about being aggressive. It's just a calm, clear statement of what is and what is not acceptable to you.
Hassan May's story is basically a perfect script for how to do this. He used to just go quiet whenever his kids would dismiss his ideas, but then he changed his approach. When his son interrupted him, he didn't get angry. He just calmly said, "Let me finish." And when his daughter made fun of one of his ideas, he said, "You don't have to agree with me, but you do have to be respectful." Simple, firm statements like that, they reestablished the boundary. And over time, his children learned they had to respect it. Okay, so you've got a strong posture, you have clear boundaries. The final piece of this puzzle is to actually live your own life. This is about showing them, not just telling them, that your world is so much bigger than just them, and this addresses the final two mistakes. This brings us to mistake number 5, unappreciated sacrifice. When you are constantly giving and giving and giving, and it's all one way, it doesn't create gratitude, it actually creates entitlement. When your help is always available, it stops being seen as a gift and starts being treated like an expectation. Amit Bey learned this the hard way. He would drop absolutely everything for his kids, but all he ever got in return were complaints or more demands. So he made a change. He stopped offering help unless they actually asked for it, and he started saying no sometimes. And suddenly, his support wasn't taken for granted anymore. It became valuable again because it wasn't a sure thing. And this all points to the 6th and final mistake, which is making your entire life revolve around theirs. Honestly, the single most powerful way to gain their respect is to have a full, interesting, meaningful life of your own. People are drawn to those who have their own passions, their own purpose. Zara Hanum is such a wonderful example of this. After she lost her husband, she tried to fill that emptiness with her children, and it started to push them away. So she changed her plan. She joined a book club, she started traveling, she began volunteering. And her kids started to see her not just as their lonely mother waiting by the phone, but as this vibrant, fascinating person living a full life. And their curiosity and their respect for her just grew and grew. So, as we wrap all of this up, the main idea becomes crystal clear. Respect isn't something you can demand from your adult children. It's not something you can argue your way into. It's something you earn through your own actions, your posture, and the way you choose to live your life. This is your path forward. It's about stopping that chase for their approval and ending the emotional dependency. It's about setting firm, clear boundaries. It's about putting a stop to that unappreciated one-way giving. And maybe most importantly of all, it's about building a fulfilling life that is truly your own. When you do these things, with that calm, dignified stance we talked about, respect just naturally follows. Not because you demanded it, but because you've truly earned it. At the end of the day, you teach people how to treat you. The power to change this whole dynamic, it's been in your hands the entire time. The only real question left is, are you ready to take that first, quiet, powerful step?